Guys, we are now at part 5 of our Metal Tone in the Mix series. And this episode is my personal favorite because we are now ready to record our guitar tracks. So we're finally here. We're finally at the point where we're ready to actually play and record those metal guitar tracks. We started out in episode 1 by assessing our gear, our hardware and software, and our amp. Episode 2, we talked about the best type of metal guitars and does it really matter if you have active or passive pickups. Episode 3, we EQ'd our amp for recording guitar tracks to sound good in the full mix. And in the last episode, we talked about mic placement. So now you're ready to record your metal guitar tracks. I've got my own special method in how I record my rhythm guitar tracks, and I actually record 2 rhythm guitars if you remember from the prior episodes. So you're gonna hear me record these guitar tracks, and you're also gonna see how it looks in the studio as well. But before you press that record button, I'm gonna take you through a few important steps here to ensure you get the best sound after all the hard work we've done leading up to this point. The first thing I want you to do is just test your sound real quick. And this is something you may have already done, but I like to go back before I press that record button and just double check my amp settings, take a look at the EQ, everything looks cool here, and I'm just gonna play through my amp. So what you're about to hear is just my raw amp tone through, the microphone I'm using here, which is on my iPhone 11. This is not a direct signal. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now the next thing we need to do, we're gonna record a test track real quick, and the point of this is to make sure our levels are loud enough so that we capture that guitar sound in the studio, but you also want to make sure that your levels are not peaking. And the way we do this, we've got to find that nice balance between where our interface input level is set and the amplifier volume. So let's record a test track to see where we're at here. And this is a really crucial step, guys. You don't want to miss this step. In other words, you don't want to test this as you start recording your track. So let's test this out real quick. I'm going to show you how this works. Now you can see that my level there, you can see in the track there that looks like a healthy level. Here's what you don't want, and I'll show you on the screen up here. See this first one here, that level is way too thin. You see how thin that is? That means you're not really picking up the essence of your guitar tone, your guitar amplifier. And that's gonna cause problems when you start mixing everything together. You definitely don't want your guitar to be the weakest link. However, you also don't want to see this. This is like, okay, this is way too much, and it's probably going to be clipping at this point as well. So in this case, you probably need to turn down the amp and the input level, and again, play around with those. Again, this what you see on screen now is a very nice, healthy looking track. You can see it's not peaking, it's not too loud, and it's not too thin. Another indicator as far as being too loud goes is you will usually see on most interfaces, there's a little red light on there when it starts clipping. You'll be able to see that. And a lot of times you'll be able to hear that as well in your headphones. It'll be this little distorted sound in there, and it's not the good kind of distortion. Now the final thing before we press that record button, I like to also test the sound in my headphones. So here's what we're gonna do. On the interface at this point, you wanna turn your volume on your interface all the way down or all the way off. And then you wanna make sure your headphone level is gonna be up so that you can hear your guitar in your headphones. Now, of course, if you're recording in a small room, a small studio, like I'm in a small 10 by 11 room here. This is my studio. That means my amp is gonna sound pretty freaking loud in this room in here, even just at like volume 1 or 2. It's still a loud amp, it's a tube amp. So I have to make sure that my headphone level is up loud enough so that I can hear clearly my music track or the drum track or whatever it is I'm playing along with, and we're about to get to that next. Now just be careful with this part, guys. Be sensible about it. Don't crank your headphones all the way up that is killing your eardrums. It might mean mean that you just need to press record and then go to the other side of the room as far away from your amp as you can get, so that you're not hearing that amp quite as loud, but you don't have to crank your headphones all the way up to hear everything clearly. Hopefully that makes sense. And I like to test this out before I start recording my real guitar tracks. I'll just hit play so that way I can hear the music and I'll start playing along with it, just to make sure I'm going to be able to record a quality guitar track that's in sync and in timing with whatever track that I'm recording to. Let's record our real guitar track now. This is our first track. In this example, I'm just going to record my first guitar track to what I like to call a dummy drum track. Now, I'm sure the drum track does not appreciate that. I'm sorry, drum track. You're not dumb, you're smart. What I mean by that is this is just a drum loop. I'm using EZdrummer, Toontrack's EZdrummer for this example. I've got a quick tutorial on that part, and I'll leave a link to that video in the description of this video so you can go back and watch that later. So we've got our first rhythm guitar track down, and this is where it gets even more fun. I'm gonna go into the studio here. I'm gonna show you a little trick that I use to get a really nice guitar mix here. All right, so what I'm gonna do with that guitar track that we just recorded, I'm gonna hard pan that all the way left. And I'm using PreSonus Studio One Pro. This is the DAW that I'm using. So right here on the track here, you can see I just moved that little slider all the way over to the left. Whatever DAW you're using, you're gonna have the same feature in there somewhere. If you don't know where that is, just Google that or go into one of the forums. But it should be pretty simple. It should be laid out really simple. You'll see some kind of little slider or knob where you can pan that track all the way to the left. This means that you're only going to hear that track in the left side of your headphones, given that you have them on the right way. Just pan that track to one side, and I always pan this one to the left. I think that way is left. Yeah. Now, and this is where things get really fun, and just wait till you record the second track. You are going to love how this sounds as you're recording. And it's going to do two things. One, the most important, it's going to make your guitar tracks come to life. It's going to make your mix sound just freaking amazing. You're going to love this. Secondly, kind of as a side effect, a good side effect, it's going to make recording that second track a lot easier, and it's going to sound so cool as you're recording that in headphones. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a new guitar track. Now remember, the track we already recorded, we hard panned that all the way to the left. So when you have this new track created, I want you to hard pan this all the way to the opposite side, which I think that's the right side. Yeah. So hard pan this track all the way to the right. Now you're ready to record that second track. So put your headphones on and let's record that track. And then I'll tell you why this simple little recording method for metal rhythm guitars is so magical. Seriously, it's like having a real life unicorn in your studio with you. So your metal rhythm guitar tracks are now recorded, or at least now you know how to record them so you can continue on recording those metal rhythms. Now there are other guitar tracks and there's other processes that go with this, and that's going to be coming up in the next videos in this series here. We'll talk about post-production because there are some little things that have to happen to make those guitar tracks sound a little bit better for the full mix. And I'm also going to touch on recording your guitar solos and any other guitar parts you might have that you want to put in the mix there. So those videos are next in this series. We're not quite done yet. But real quick, before we end this video, I want to explain why my little method here is so important for getting a really nice and organic and lively guitar sound. You see, one of the problems that I see in metal music and really just music in general, especially as we get more modernized and technology advances and all that, is music can start to sound a little too robotic. Now, if that's the sound you're going for, that's fine. But what I'm talking about here is getting more of an organic sound and a tone and sound that just brings your tracks to life and just really captivates the listener. Here's why I pan those guitar tracks. Here's why I record 2 guitar tracks and hard pan each one. For one, you've got like a true stereo sound, and that's just gonna improve the listening experience of your music. Secondly, you're not gonna record that second guitar track exactly the same way you recorded that first guitar track. And this answers the question as to why I don't just copy that track over to the next one. I've had that question asked many times, like, well, if you're gonna hard pan the tracks, Jason, why don't you just copy the track you already recorded to a new track and then hard pan that? Well, all that does is increase the volume. So I just wanted to cover that real quickly. That just increases the volume. You don't really have a second guitar track. You've just got more of the same. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a second performance, okay? We're looking for a second true recorded rhythm guitar track. Because when you mix those together, again, remember, even though you might be tight in your playing, you're not gonna play it exactly the same. Like every little millisecond's not gonna be exactly lined up. That is what brings more life to your guitar tracks. Oh man, it makes it sound so amazing. I get excited about this because every time I record my guitars this way, which is every time, I just love the outcome, and I'm so excited for you to try this because I promise you're gonna love the way this sounds. Now, you may find that you record that second guitar track a little better and a little tighter. You may find that you do that, and then you may have to go back and re-record the guitar track that you hard pan left. That is common, and that's okay. Be okay with that. The reason that happens though is because when you're recording that second guitar track, it's a little easier to record that guitar track having the first one already recorded because you've got more of a guide to go by. And I've even found myself recording these tracks over multiple times. Like I'll record track 1, hard pan it, record track 2, and it's like, okay, track 2 sounds better than track 1, so I'll go back and re-record track 1, and I'm like, well, track 1 I re-recorded sounds better than all of them, so I like this. Now let me go back and re-record track 2 again. Sometimes you bounce back and forth before you get it right because again, the tracks aren't going to be lined up perfectly, but you do want them to be in sync. You don't want the timing to be off to the point where it's recognizable. But again, you're not gonna have both tracks exactly the same. So that's gonna bring out these little nuances in your rhythm guitar tracks, and it's just gonna bring it to life, man. It's gonna sound so amazing. So guys, a couple things real quick. I want you to continue watching this series. This series is actually in a playlist on YouTube. I'll put the link in the description of the video. And I've also got a complete guide on recording and mixing guitars. It's a little bit longer video, kind of covering everything at a high level there. So be sure you check that out as well. And please give this video a thumbs up if it is helping you, if this series is helping you. I've gotten a ton of comments so far, and I expect more comments on questions that may come up, and just people saying, man, thank you for putting this out there. I really hope this series is helping you, and I hope it encourages you to start recording your guitar tracks with a real live amp like we're doing in this series. I have nothing against amp sims, I use them myself, but let's just be honest, there's nothing like recording with a real live amp. It's just a completely different feel. So again, please give this a thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed and ding that little bell, all that good stuff. And guys, thank you for supporting my music, this channel, and all your support you guys give me. I really appreciate you guys. Until the next video, as always, keep it metal.